Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome to All Politics Are Local with Barry D.
I am back with another episode of All Politics Are Local, a weekly show hosted by that short but strikingly handsome man, Barry D.
Good morning, Vietnam!
How many times do I have to tell you, it's Chester County. It's Chester County. We are proud to be Chester County's only AM and FM radio station located on the 17th floor of the WCHE Studios corporate building here right on West Gay Street in Westchester. Just a short hop down the road from Jake's Bar at 549 South Matlack here in Westchester. I think they still have 50-cent beers there and T-shirts that I've seen. I've actually seen them in far-flung states all around the country. I've seen them in Nevada. I've seen them in New Jersey, although I don't usually admit to going there. But anyway, you know, when you ask, what's a popular dive bar around here? Jake's is the standard answer. This is a Westchester legend that opens at 8 in the morning, so if you're coming off third shift, Jake's is the only place to go. And if you've never been there, go today, because it's an experience you're going to be sharing with your grandchildren after they turn 21, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Another shameless plug for a neighboring business. To my left is the third year in a row winner of the title Best Operator of the Boards at WCHE on Fridays from 11 till noon. The one and only Eric Clambera. People sometimes think he's just another pretty face, and that's just not true. Seriously. It is not pretty. He certainly has a face for radio.
You're killing me, Smalls.
So, what have I got today? My standard Bud Light commercial, 5 minutes with Jackie. This is really going to be a good one. And an interview with a man named Doug Eversmeyer. He's here to tell a story about how government that's job is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its citizenry just can't seem to get it done.
That's pretty hard to believe.
Yeah, sadly, it's not anymore. That's the state of our government. Well, it's that time of the show where we head back in the time machine to place that calendar on to where commercials and poking fun at something and somebody just wasn't such a big deal. I mean, it could hurt somebody's feelings, but we really didn't care. They could suck it up and move on. Being politically correct was just starting to become a problem back in the early 2000s. And Bud Light, well, they had some great on-edge commercials. My, how things change. So let's go back a quarter century and hear how it once was.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius.
Real Men of Genius.
Today we salute you, Mr. Mail Order Bride Orderer.
Mr. Mail Order Bride Orderer.
Some men flip through a catalog looking for furniture. You flip through a catalog looking for someone to clean the furniture.
I don't do windows.
Nothing says, I will love you forever, like a quick swipe of the credit card at the altar.
What's your payment plan?
Women wait their whole lives for a man to say, I do. In your case, I do agree to pay the sum of $3,000 American dollars.
Let's talk numbers.
So crack open an ice cold Bud Light, oh catalog Casanova. Your spouse may be full price, but you'll always be our better half.
Mr. Mail Order Bride Orderer.
Bud Light Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Let's take a break, and we'll pay some bills, and then we're going to jump to 5 minutes with Jack.
Barry D is back with All Politics Are Local.
All right, we're back. And how about 5 minutes with Jack? Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Barry, I'm doing excellent. And how are you, sir?
I can't complain. If I were any finer, I'd be you. What do you got today? What do you got? What's going on? What's hot? What's happening?
Hey, Barry, I got some interesting stuff for you today. But, however, based on last week, I did want to do a little PSA here and encourage anyone that's experiencing chronic pain to look for a pain management team.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a follow-up to our discussion last week on talking about the problems you have with your back and not knowing what's going on in people's minds, right?
That's exactly right. There's a lot of choices out there: yoga, acupuncture, chiropractics, massage therapy, physical therapy, light services. There's a lot of new technology out there. I encourage anyone that suffers to keep looking and find the one that works for them.
And it's funny you say that because a good friend of mine just went under the knife yesterday for a 3-hour procedure. 5 hours later, he came out and he seems to be doing okay. But he was in horrible, horrible pain. So, and I'm hoping for the best for him because he really deserves it.
Yeah, find a good pain management doctor with their team, and just go through it and find what works for you, because every human is different.
And if you don't know what Jack is talking about, you're going to have to go back into the podcast and look up last week's show. Anyway, what's on the subject matter for today, Jack?
So, Barry, the great Josh Shapiro, the governor of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is
That's our Commonwealth.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah. He seems to be in a little legal kerfuffle, I guess it would be, with his neighbors for his his private residence in Abington, where after the governor's mansion was firebombed last year.
Yeah, by some nutcase.
Yes. They decided that his private home in Abington needed an 8-foot security fence around the perimeter. Problem was, when they had the surveyor come out, they found that the Shapiro property was actually encroaching on the neighbor's property by 2,900 square feet.
Uh-huh.
They decided that they would build the fence anyways, and prior to that, the state police that, of course, patrolled and provided security at both residences had often told the Mocks, which are the neighbors of the Shapiros, that they had to vacate that property.
They had to what? They had to vacate their own ground? Why would they have to leave their ground?
They were instructed by the state police to do so while it was contested. So now the neighbors have filed a federal lawsuit, and of course the Shapiros are saying it shouldn't go to federal court. And this is an example of politics and how the Shapiros are being bullied.
Wait a minute. You mean the trespasser that's on the other people's ground is now the victim? Is that what you're telling me, Jack?
Yes, with the Mr. Shapiro's net worth as of 2023 was $5 million.
Buy the neighbor's house.
You could buy the house.
Then change the property lines and sell the house.
Exactly.
So what are they doing about it? What's going on? There's a federal lawsuit on this, but over what? What's the story that they've just taken the ground without compensation, or that the deed clearly reflects what it is because they said they did the survey. His own people have checked it all out. So what is it? Is it a takings thing? What is Shapiro trying to do here? What's happening?
The Shapiros want to be recognized and secure the land rightfully through adverse possession.
Well, that takes 21 years.
Yes, well, they've been in the house since 2003.
Okay, so that's 23 years.
Yeah.
And they would have to have blatantly been on that ground, mowing it, cutting the grass, trimming back trees, doing all sorts of things for that to actually happen, right? Because it has to be provable that they were maintaining that ground without the neighbors telling them, hey, get off our ground.
Exactly. And, of course, the neighbors weren't aware that the Shapiros had been encroaching on their land. It wasn't discovered until the Shapiros had a surveyor come out and inform us, but hey, by the way, your property line's here, not there.
But the question is, were they encroaching? And we don't know the answer to that. Encroaching, would be they were maintaining it. They put a fence up on it. They did all these different things, and the neighbors never said, hey, get off our property. So that's an interesting one to see where that's going to go. But I still find it hysterical that Shapiro is the victim, that while he is stealing somebody's land, legally or not, Democrat or Republican, that's a scumbag move.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I got to tell you, he has a history of this. I mean, look at what's been going on. A lot of people don't know about it. I don't know if you know about it. HB 502, where they want to just take the rights away from the local municipalities and their zoning to be able to put a power plant just in the middle of residential properties and residential zoning. Do you know anything about that?
That's exactly right, Barry. That's what they're calling the resilient power, to where you can plop a power plant up to minimum of 25 megawatts.
That's a big one.
That's big. That's not small. That's a lot of power you're talking about there.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to stick your tongue on that wire.
No. And it can be for public or private usage.
Wait. So you could make it for your data center?
You can certainly do it for your data center. And I don't know, with a capacity of 25 megawatts or more. So it has to be at least 25 megawatts.
So it could be 100 megawatts?
So if you had four of them, four 25 megawatters or a single 100 megawatt. So
what's the point of it? I mean, 502, right? HB 502, by the way, looks to be completely partisan. Only one party. It looks to me, and I could be wrong, but it looked to me like only one party was endorsing this. But I don't understand what the point is of wanting to put a power plant in the middle of a residential area and defeating zoning areas. Look, you're in the business of this power plant stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the problem with just building them on top of the old power plants, like the Crombie one right over in Phoenixville that was coal? Why don't they build another one there that's gas? Why don't they do things why don't they put them out in brownfields? There's 1 million brownfields out in the middle of the state where they have strip mined coal. There's huge areas that they could just put the stuff there. They build plants on top of those things to get the old tailings, but they could build something there, and it would be much better than what's there now, wouldn't it?
I completely agree. I am a fan of using brownfields, especially repurposing them. And Pennsylvania has a lot of things in their toolbox, in that they do have a program called Payback, to where they're trying to utilize some of these brownfield facilities for just like you mentioned. And so I think this particular bill is to, like you said, to circumvent local municipalities and just pop these anywhere they see fit. It seems like an expedited way of implementing the Reliable Energy City and Electric Transition Board will be in charge.
What do they consider reliable energy in this bill?
It does not designate that, but reliable is typically something that can turn on and be available fairly quickly. So that would...
And 24 hours a day.
Yes, and that would discount solar.
Wind. Nuclear and fossil always has power to it. It's readily available.
That is the primary attractiveness of fossil fuels, is its reliability. You go to the light switch and flick it, and there it is. Year-round, 24 hours a day.
Yep. Generating light, generating heat. That's the thing. But my point of that was with 502, which he's a big proponent of, this is his MO. I'll just take it. I'll just take your ground. I'll just take your ground. I thought in this country, I become very frustrated with this stuff, Jack. I thought that we had things called property rights here. And this is an erosion of those.
Well, just think of what it would do to your property right or your property value if all of a sudden, someone buys some land next to you and they decide, hey, I'm putting a power plant here. No, this is zoned residential. No, not according to this. We're good.
Yeah, we've got a little cutout in the zoning.
Yes. And it certainly undermines the spirit of collaboration between local and state government.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's the best way to put this. And I'm just tired of it, Jack. I'm tired of the government just doing the stuff going, well, we just wrote a new law. It's like The only difference between the mob and government is the mob doesn't write the laws. Government does, so it can just go and take that stuff. And if you don't think that's true, ask the American Indian how that's worked out.
Yes, and I think that's a good example. I would say this. You mentioned that it's been sponsored one-sided. It looks like there's 39 Democrat House members that have signed or sponsored this. Mm-hmm. It's still in phase. It looks like they're trying to do some amendments to it. So I would encourage all your listeners to contact your local representative and let them know that what you feel about this. Of course, do some research on House Bill 502. Make sure that you're informed.
It's called, what is it? House Bill 502.
Reliable Energy Sitting and Electric Transition Board.
Yeah. Right. The reset board. So type in HB 502 reset, and then it'll pop. The information will pop up on that. I guarantee. I've been following this for a long time. It's appalling to me. There's a lot of ways to do things. This ain't one of them. But you know what? When you're taking your neighbor's land, who cares what else? Maybe he'll put a power plant there and then sell his property. Who knows?
Yeah, or run a power plant, because you have the option of selling to the grid or using it locally on the property. So that's data center, or you become what's known as an EUG.
What's an EUG?
Electric utility generation.
Got it.
So
Well,
that's our PICOs, our PPNLs.
Yep.
In the area. Med-Ed.
Well, Jack, I got to tell you, I really appreciate your informing on this. I didn't know how much you knew about 502. I thought I was going to surprise you, and as it turns out, you know quite a bit about it. But again, it is your industry. So, Jack, thanks for coming on this week, and I wish the best of luck to Shapiro's neighbors, because I think it's the ultimate in scumbaggery what he's doing, all of a sudden being the victim while he's stealing their ground.
And we certainly know that scumbaggery is technical lingo.
That's right. It's exactly it. It's going to end up in Merriam-Webster's dictionary next time around. I'll get credit for it. Anyway, hey, thanks, Jack. We'll talk again next week.
Certainly. Take care, my friend.
We'll see you. And we're going to take a quick break and pay some bills, and we're going to come back with our guest, Doug Eversmeyer from Honeybrook Township.
Barry D is back with All Politics Are Local.
I am back. Today's an interesting interview. I was contacted by somebody that is a regular listener to the show, and he's not getting any traction with any governmental agency. And I find it to be a boring thing that they would actually do this to an individual, not only an individual, a 21-year veteran of the Air Force, the United States Air Force, who separated from them in 2004. This guy put a lot of time in, and he came back home, and a short time later, he's been getting poisoned by his neighbor ever since. This has been an ongoing concern. And all of these government agencies just ignore him. They say, that's not really our area. You know, all this stuff that's supposed to be about safety, you know, the safety, health, safety, welfare of your citizenry, all of them seem to have an excuse for not doing anything. It's like they're selling you an insurance policy, but not really health care, right? So you buy the policy, but when the time comes, like, we don't cover that. So Doug Eversmeyer is a resident out in Honeybrook Township. So he contacted me because he's had this situation going on with open burning. It's open burning. Now, look, your neighbors can open burn once in a while. They do the thing, get a 55-gallon drum, they put the stuff in there, and they burn it. You know, don't want to be too windy, things like that. But here's the deal. The prevailing winds in our area, right across the country, typically run east. Yeah, southeast, east, northeast. More northeast than anything. But anyway, that smoke plume will just go out and kind of disband across an area. The further it goes out, the wider it's going to get. He has a neighbor just down the road from him, just short while and short ways, and Doug will talk more about distances. He's not only burning, He's burning plastics, treated lumber, tires. I've seen the pictures, ladies and gentlemen. He lights his stuff on fire next to a creek. All that residue, every time it rains, apparently runs into the creek. So that's enough about me talking about this. You really want to listen to the story by Doug Eversmeyer. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Barry.
I appreciate you coming on and telling me your story. Now let's tell it to the public. You have a massive binder here. You have samples of things that have blown onto your property and all that. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start with 21-year vet in the United States Air Force. Tell the audience what you did for 21 years.
Well, I was an aircraft mechanic with the A-10s and went in 1991 and liberated Kuwait. And during the time of the liberation, the Iraqis had lit all the oil fields on fire, and there was a lot of stuff that was burning nonstop. And I was there the first 9 months of the liberation of Kuwait.
A lot of the veterans have the same issue that later on the 9/11 firefighters and first responders had.
Yes. We've now all tested positive at the PAC Act, which the government's finally took notice of.
And the PAC Act is what?
It's in reference to the burn pits that were over there, the uranium dust, plutonium munitions that were being burned and destroyed after we liberated Kuwait. And all the stuff we inhaled, we asked questions when we were there about the burn pits and the toxicity of all the stuff being burned.
That's fine. It's no problem. Right?
But they said, yeah, it's not an issue. You're okay.
Suck it up. You're fine.
Yeah. So finally they approved the funding to do studies, which my lung capacity, I noticed over the years, I used to be able to free dive down in the Bahamas, and I wasn't able to go as deep and stuff, and I kept complaining to the VA, and then they finally enacted the PACT Act, and
they probably attributed it to you're just getting older, Doug. You just can't do it as well.
Well, they tried to put it off as everything under the sun.
Sure.
And then they finally admitted, after they did a pulmonary function test, that my lungs are worse, and any exposure to secondhand smoke or fires, etc., will trigger it to where my respiratory system starts to shut down.
Mm-hmm. That's almost a safety measure. The body thinks, I got to stop this from happening, but instead it's killing you.
Yes, and I've continually complained to the Honeybrook Township, the DEP, Department of Ag. I've noted all the entities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and also stated under Article 1, Chapter 27 about the Clean Air Act, it's to promote prominent and clean air and pure water.
Mm-hmm. And
over the years, approximately 9 years after this site went in, my well started being contaminated. I've lived at the residence 40-some years and never had a problem with well contamination. I've spent $30-some thousand ripping plumbing out and redoing the house and filtration systems and UV lights to try and purify the water to where I could drink pure water.
What's the contamination?
It's E. coli and different bacteria and trace elements of microfibers and stuff that's in my water, which the only thing I can contribute it to is up the street, they're grinding plastics up. They're burning plastics. He burns tires. He burns siding. He burns fiberglass shingles, furniture, and stuff. And it's nonstop. Lately, it's been every 3 days. He's been burning. In the last month, I've been in and out of the hospital 4 times, and now I'm on nebulizer treatment 4 times a day, every 6 hours, and I have 13 medications, inhalers, and it was to the point where I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't even get it out of my house.
You know, I saw a picture in your notebook, and I had to ask you about it. It was some kind of white, boxy thing, and you said that he was getting ready to burn it, and he had painted on the side, Cry Baby Doug.
Yes.
Cry Baby Doug.
Yeah. Well, I had Lisa Miller from the DEP. I've been in contact with her, and this is in 2025. He was burning at least once a week. He was doing hauling jobs and side jobs, and he'd bring the materials back that he took off of sites, and he would burn it versus taking it to the landfill.
Well, landfill costs money, Doug. Come on, you don't want to spend money.
He wants to profit.
Mm-hmm.
He had 6 white totes that you use for storage of vegetable oils or whatever, getting ready to be burned.
Yeah, you see them up at Zook Molasses, things like that. Yeah.
So I called DEP.
That's a polyethylene plastic.
Yes. I called DEP. They went out and notified Mr. Rogers about the burning. He couldn't burn it. It was in the pile where he's burned in the past, and they know that area because they've been out at least 10 times. I've notified them about burning, and I have photographs that I've sent them over and over again. And immediately afterwards, Mr. Rogers comes down and stops on Mount Pleasant Road and says, "Oh, I want to thank you for calling the DEP." And I said, well, when you violate the laws of the Commonwealth and township regulations about burning plastics and toxins, which is illegal, I'm going to call. I said, I took an oath to serve foreign and domestic. You're on my turf, and I shouldn't have to breathe this stuff.
Right.
Oh, you're a crybaby, blah, 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 blah. You know, you want to make this an issue? I'm going to sue you for harassment. And I was like, go ahead. I'm not the one in violation. I have the photographs.
Right.
And I have the pictures of the bins that he posted right on Mount Pleasant Road.
Maybe that'd be best if he sued you. Then at least you have the evidence in court, and then it'd be obvious.
Well, yeah.
But who's going to take? Who's been taking action? Nobody.
Department of Ag. I went to the Hershey Farm Show years ago and brought it up to the Ag. Ag points the fingers. Well, it's DEP. DEP says DEA. Then everybody points the fingers. I contacted Chester County Health Department in the past.
Yeah, what did Chester County Health Department say?
They said, well, they aren't the issuing authority for the permit for the site and the animal decomposing. The state is. So the state supersedes the county.
So let's talk about that. We actually didn't mention, I don't think, the animal decomposition. Tell me about that.
Well, originally it was supposed to be for local neighbors bringing farm animals. Because
you can't bury them. It's against the law to bury them.
No. Since the conception of this site, it used to be on the western side of the property, which the water flowed right to the side stream that went to the west branch of the Brandywine Creek. Since then, they moved it over to the eastern side of the property. Now it's about 10 times larger than what was originally proposed and allocated for. And since then, they have runoff where it's flowed. We've had heavy rains back in 2025, and I called the Fish and Game Commission because sludge was running into the creek behind my house and into my fields. And I'm certified organic. And if they find microbacteria or microfibers in my soil, it's a $10,000 fine. In 10 years, my farm is not allowed to operate because I'm organic. So they've done nothing. All these entities, I keep sending letters and phone calls. I contacted Chesapeake Watershed Authorities.
Well, Brandywine's a headwater
and everything, because this goes to the Chesapeake Watershed. And they said, well, you got to reach out to the DEP, DEA. I have all the letters in this nice binder that's 5 inches thick, and I still have a tote in my basement that's 3 feet long with all the documentation from 2010 to 2026. This has been going on. I have all the violation notices where at least once a year they've been found to be doing something illegal. They've never put in a permanent basin that is an impervious surface to catch the leaching issues. There's a pile of bone marrow at the back corner that's at least 80 feet long, 40 feet deep, and 25, 30 feet tall of bone marrow, and the bones from the animals that they grind up that didn't fully grind, and they're just stockpiling it in the back, which is close to the creek. And there's no berm and no way to catch the parasites or bacteria that's leaching out of this.
I understand it, and I could be wrong, okay? So, listeners, I could be wrong. I'm not an absolute specialist in this, but in my experience from other farmers that I have seen do this, you are not allowed to allow organics to flow into the waterways of the Commonwealth. I knew a farmer that had a huge manure pile and it ran down into the drain that ran across the street, dumped into a field, and then ran right down into a creek. And not allowed to do that. But because he had connections with the Chester County Conservation District and Green Valleys, the higher up authorities said we lean on those local groups to advise us. And they went, oh, there's nothing there. It's fine. They just lied. And they're so lazy that the upper groups will never police it just to check. So have you checked, by the way, with Chester County Conservation District and Green Valleys, just out of interest?
I've sent letters.
Not that it means anything.
I've sent letters, and I have phone calls. I have actually notations in the binder of all the stuff going throughout the years. And for years, I was fighting a dead end where nobody would listen, and still nobody's listening. But now that the gentleman, Dave Rogers, down at 283 Compost Tech, is burning at least 3 times a week. On a Tuesday, I came back from the emergency room to him burning. I called the Honeybrook Fire Department, and they weren't there, so I called 911. So it's a matter of record. The fire department was notified. The lieutenant went out and didn't put the fire out, let it burn and smolder. And the grasshopper truck came from a westerly direction down east on Mount Pleasant Road. And I was standing at the top of my driveway because 911 dispatcher said somebody would stop and talk to me on the way. Well, the lieutenant passed by. The grasshopper truck goes by, never putting the fire out, and their window was down. I said, are you going to put the fire out? Well, it smoldered the entire evening. Wednesday morning, I got up. I could not breathe. I was throwing up and gasping for breath. I went back to the VA urgent care, where they did nebulizer treatments, steroid injections, and gave me a regimen of 13 medications that I now take every day to try and clear my lungs and my body of the microfibers that my body's ingested. Being that I was exposed to the burn pits for such a long period, my body can't handle the toxins from this stuff, and my body starts to shut down. I've reached out to the township manager. I actually stopped back at 12:30 that afternoon in the office, and Warren Oberneski was sitting in the conference room. I went in and spoke to him, and I took pictures, and I stated that he was burning again. He then said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, I've filed notices and complaints and concerns with this township over the years, and it needs to be addressed and handled, which it has not been done. Then I filed a right to know paperwork on the 26th or 20th of April. They say they have no records of any notices of violations being sent to this gentleman. Yet I have one paper they sent me where they said they sent a letter to him back in 2025, but in the right to know paperwork that Christy Edie sent to me.
And who's Christy Edie?
She's the township secretary, and she's the right to know person.
Right to know officer. Yep.
Yep. And she continually says they aren't required to keep any documentation nor any paperwork. And yet, when the site originally started in 2010, we were told any violations or notices that were sent would be filed with the township because we were concerned residents and we wanted to know if there were violations, what they were, because Barkman Superfund site was right up the street on Welsh Mountain from years ago.
Ernie Barkman, yeah.
And that was an EPA Superfund site. This site is going to be another EPA Superfund site. And then just back in December, they were talking about the digesters and how they want to promote and enlist a set standardization of the digesters. And I questioned it. I said, when you can't even control an animal decomposing site and enforce the laws, and you aren't, according to township, you aren't allowed to do any burning of... What's
the zoning for that? Can you? It looks like you have that there. Could you read that to me?
It says Honeybrook Township, outdoor burning of household, commercial, or industrial trash, other refuse, leaf waste, yard waste, or recyclable materials that are required to be separated, and plastics is prohibited. A farmer may not burn household waste, refuse, recyclables generated from any other residents. the burning of toxic materials of any kind, including treated lumber, tires, plastics, etc., is strictly prohibited. Which, back in 2025, I sent a certified registered letter down to Dave Rogers, and he was a little bit upset, again, because DEP had served him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's clearly, and I have the photograph showing this, but he denies it, and he says, because I'm a farmer, I can do whatever I want. And I said, well, I'm a farmer, and my family's been practicing since the 1870s.
Right.
I said, there's good stewardship. And I said, have you attended any Pennsylvania ag seminars on farming or good stewardship? He says, nah. And then he goes off and he says, well, I got Troy from DEP on speed dial. We'll settle this once and for all.
I'll tell you what, hold that part. We're going to go to a commercial, and then we're going to talk about speed dial Troy. We'll be right back.
Barry D is back with All Politics Are Local.
I am back with Doug Eversmeyer, 21-year veteran, who is being poisoned in his own township, and there is not one government entity that seems to want to help him out. Open burning, illegal at the township level. DEP refers back to the township. The township does nothing. You got the Department of Agriculture. They don't want to hear it. Chester County Health Department says, not our ballywick. Nobody seems to want to do anything. I'm guessing the EPA says they refer back to the state. What goes on with that, Doug, real quick, before we go back to Troy on speed dial?
It's finger pointing back from each entity. They don't want to take responsibility to push the blame off on another department.
Because then they might have to do some work?
Well, yeah, and I've called each of those departments, and actually last week when I got fed up after being in the hospital, I sent out 15 certified letters to, again, the different departments. I sent one to Senator Katie Muth, Representative Dan Williams. When I spoke to his aide said, well, what do you expect him to do? He's not DPA, EPA, or Ag, or any of these entities. That's not his job. And
his job is to be a liaison for the public.
I said, you work for the constituents of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
exactly.
And I'm in one of the districts, and we're having an issue because the township doesn't want to file any citations or hold the gentleman accountable for burning illegally. Mm-hmm. And it's even in the township guidelines, and it's also in the state guidelines. I looked it up in the state. You aren't allowed to burn any toxins, and I looked up the pollutants. It's 41 pages long, mm-hmm. and it states you cannot burn tires. You cannot burn non-organic materials, mm-hmm. which the gentleman's burning siding, fiberglass shingles, household furniture, mattresses, plastic bins.
Mattresses.
The list goes on.
Mattresses is an interesting one, and I do want to get back to Troy and speed dial for the DEP. The mattresses, I think $75 Lancaster landfill for you to do that, because they have to disassemble them because they take up so much space. So you have to pay them to. That's why mattresses end up alongside the road, because you can't throw them out. Trash men aren't going to pick it up. So you have to take a utility knife and cut it and separate the steel and the foam and the cover and all that. And they need to get paid for that. And I get that. I totally get that, because it takes up too much space. But to burn them is a real problem, because it's got styrofoam in there, which is just foul. I mean, it's just a terrible, toxic, noxious smoke. And the bed covers that go over the covering for the mattress is typically a man-made substance, a polyester, nylon in there, that type of thing. I'm sure there might be some cotton in there here and there, but there's a lot of nasty stuff there. It's all basically petroleum-based.
Yep.
So... okay, so now you're talking with your neighbor, and he says he has the DEP on speed dial. What happens?
He's at the truck in his gray Dodge Dakota at the top of my driveway in the street, and ranting and raving. And he says, well, I'm calling Troy. So he supposedly calls Troy. He says, well, I want to get this over and done with. Mr. Eversmeyer's claimed his well's been contaminated, which we don't have any proof of. Yep, I have H.O. Thompson's water thing and B.L. Myers' water test, mm-hmm. and everybody's thing.
B.L. Myers, that's pretty legit.
So I can't dispute it, and I've been there for 30-some years prior to my well being contaminated. Never had a problem, and was safe to drink my water. So he claimed that, and then he goes off and he says, well, I'll let you come out and do soil samples on my property, and that'll clear me. And I said, well, that'd be really great.
Yeah,
so on
that's great.
April 7th, 2025, I sent Dave Rogers a letter and said, I'd really like to know when the entities, the EPA, DEA, and DEP, and the Ag Department is going to come out. I'd like to be there, hold hand in hand, and
do soil samples.
Verify that the samples, because I can show them the areas where you've burned, because you might take them to some place that you never burned at, and then it'll come up negative and say, oh, I told you so, because he lies time and time again. And he sits on the planning commission in Honeybrook Township, and it's favoritism because
I think just hold for a second on that. Planning commissions, these commissions they're appointed jobs, and now it's starting to make sense just when you say that why the township's not doing anything. If he's on there, he's connected to somebody, and he's on there. He's already getting favoritism out of somebody there, typically supervisors. And I'm not saying they did it. I'm just saying it happens a lot.
Well, that's quite ironic because back in the early 2000s, I was the chairman of the Boca and Coba Codes laws in the township, and I was the board supervisor. So I helped write the zoning laws of Honeybrook Township years ago. In the early 2000s.
Oh, so you were a supervisor then?
I was the chairman of the Boca and Coba board. So anybody who wanted to appeal a township zoning
you had to know it.
They had to come before me and 3 other board members, and we'd either grant them approval to do what they want to do or we'd deny it. So I've been a facet of this township my entire time, and when I was still doing reserve time with the military and my active duty time, I came back to Honeybrook, and I've been residing there since 1987. And I've always been involved with natural disasters in the township and stuff. So I'm not somebody who's not known, but the board members, when I come in and make a complaint, they do nothing, and they look the other way, and there's a woman who's, I think her name is Needles. She stated to them that I have valid claims and something needs to be done, and they tell her to shut up and they're going to do what they want to do. So I'm being shoved out by every entity, and I have all the certified registered letters that went out on this past week on Monday to all the entities wanting to know what's plans to be done, and am I going to be able to live by the PA Constitution of clean air and pure drinking water.
Right, which is right there in it. It's exactly. By the way, the supervisors of Honeybrook Township are who?
There's Val and
Valerie Schultz, who's been on the show before.
Sal Giamoro or Galmoro.
DiGiacomo. I know that because I'm Italian, so I know.
DiGiacomo.
Sal DiGiacomo, okay.
And then I think Lori Birdie is the other person.
And all of them have told you the same thing. Leave us alone or
they ignore me. They listen to me, and it's actually in the minutes from December about the animal digester, because I said, I can see where this is leading to.
Okay.
That digester is going to end up at 283 Mount Pleasant Road. And now you're changing the height variances for Honeybrook, because when I wrote the laws or the zoning in 2002, the maximum height was 35 feet.
Okay. So is that the last time you spoke with the supervisors?
I've been I spoke to the manager.
Okay.
December 2025, I spoke to the managers in the minutes.
When did the person, and it was in the minutes, because they had an election. And so they had a new supervisor come in, which was Valerie Schultz.
Yes.
So she wasn't on the board at the time.
No.
Okay, just to be clear, because I want to make sure that
it's all the predecessors prior to Tracy Ford Olson.
Okay.
John McHugh was fighting them for years about this.
And who is John McHugh?
He was a township supervisor also.
And he's been fighting this issue
since 2010.
Wow.
And Lou Wortley was fighting it since 2010. He was a township supervisor.
Okay, I want to make
also.
sure I give credit to the people that are fighting it and the people that are endorsing it or ignoring it.
Also, Joe Fensenmacher was a township supervisor back in 2010, and I have the report and the questions that were asked about this site. And they went deaf ear. Nobody addressed the issues. After Barkman Superfund site, we were told that we would get monthly or yearly reports. There are times when the certification and inspections on the site have gone undone for years because I called the...
And who is supposed to be doing those inspections?
The Department of Ag and DEP is supposed to be an EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, because the bacteria and parasites from these animals are leaching down into the creek bed and the groundwater tables and in the soils. My brother is the head of Oregon State Department of Health, and I questioned him on it, and he was out several times to visit, and he could not believe the stench emanated from the dead animals blowing down, and customers who come out to pick on my organic farm are like, what the heck is that? I said, well, that's an animal decomposing site. They allow that to happen? That's polluting the air. I said, I've been to the state and everybody since 2010. Nothing has been done. You would think they would put in an enclosed building in with a concrete floor so it can't leach out, put HEPA filters in so any air being discharged from the site would be filtered.
Or a brownfields area where nobody's going to be around.
Well,
something like that where it's already contaminated. And
it's not going to happen. They're going to shut down because Dave Rogers sits on the planning commission, and I can guarantee 99.99% that digester that they're trying to push in and the new zoning laws and stuff that they're trying to adopt so a digester can go into Honeybrook Township is going to be right next door to me. Yet for 16 years, they've done nothing to resolve the complaints from myself and other township residents. Other residents complain, and there's no response. They say, and Warren Obernesky's famous thing is, well, Mr. Eversmeyer, if you don't like the stench and stuff, move. I said, excuse me, why should I move? Well, I didn't like my neighbor where I lived before, so I moved so I didn't have to deal with the neighbor. I said, well, my quality of health is being affected by this, and I shouldn't have to move. You should enforce being a township manager. This should have been forwarded to Technicon, the zoning people.
Right. That's the thing. The zoning people are supposed to come out and inspect.
And I don't think he's ever forwarded any of the papers. I think it goes to him, and then he takes it and shreds it. Because according to the Right to Know, they have no records of any of my concerns or complaints.
You'd almost think something like this would be taken to the DA, but I have no idea. I just don't know that. I did want to ask you did say something to me off air that the DEP said that they have no right to go on the property. And we only have about 5 minutes, so I want to be pretty clean and concise on this. You said the DEP has no right on the property. And by the way, neither does the zoning officer, unless they're invited on there. Isn't that what you said, that they're not allowed, that they have no right to go on his property without any permission?
Back in April 2025, they said that they have no right to gainfully enter the property. But then I reiterated the phone call that Dave Rogers made in March to Troy at the DEP, who was, quote, on speed dial and a best friend. And I have notices where Troy has gone out and done inspections and said there's no issues, cases closed and stuff. Yet he did notice plastics in a burn area, but there was no citation and no notice. I have the paperwork right here showing it, that they saw the plastics. And they told me, well, if you're concerned about the water, go down in the creek and take samples and have it tested and let us know what the findings are. I said, but isn't that part of your jurisdiction or the EPA?
Right.
And I've notified the EPA. I notified the Chesapeake Watershed Authority and the Fortune of Brandywine and the reserves.
The CCCD should also, the Chester County.
And the Health Department.
Chester County Conservation District, they should be very concerned with that.
And the Chester County Health Department I notified about my well being contaminated a number of times. And it goes on deaf ear.
There is one last thing, and I'm going to have to jump because we're going to have to close out of the show. You showed me some pictures in there, and there was all sorts of plastic in the soil. Why is there a bunch of plastic in the soil on his fields?
Well,
got 1 minute.
The issue is he's getting stuff being brought in, products with dead animals wrapped in plastic, and there's plastic and stuff that comes from the sale barns, and they grind it up and put it back into the compost that they're now putting on the fields throughout Chester County. So
this was almost shreds, though. This was almost shreds of plastic. I saw
there's
in the
strips
field.
that are, some of them are half a trash bag. There's other things that are little microfibers.
And they're tilling all that into the ground?
Yes. I have the picture of the field. It's glistening like glass, and I took photos and sent it to the DEP. Yet Troy from the DEP says he could not find anything wrong.
Wow.
So it goes on deaf ear, and nobody wants to do anything.
Doug, I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to make some phone calls myself. By the way, I just did a quick look up. It's actually Dave Rogers is on the zoning hearing board, not the planning commission.
For zoning, yes.
So, but simple mistake. I just want to clarify that so that people understand. People make the mistake all the time. They confuse the planning commission and the zoning hearing board. I cannot thank you enough, one, for your service, sir, and two, for coming on today. I'm going to do a little push myself. I'm going to make some phone calls, see what I can come up with. I can't promise anything, but I promise I won't be useless. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's more than I've gotten in the last 16 years.
Right. There you go. It's time to wrap up the show, and I'm thanking my guest, Doug Eversmeyer, for coming on and enlightening us all on how a government that doesn't do its job can affect us all. By the way, this is all downstream. West Branch of Brandywine flows all the way down, goes down through Coatesville, then goes on down past Longwood Gardens, and then on down into Delaware and out into the Chesapeake. So we're all affected by this. All politics are local, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Eric Lambert, my producer here on All Politics Local, and an all-around good guy. Be sure to catch up with him and many other members of the WCHE team as they do the special intermission show during the Ice Capades called WCHE on Ice. Our own Steve Foose and Terry Heyman will do a performance of Frank Zappa's song Valley Girl and do their very famous reverse death spiral, where Terry's actually the one spinning Steve.
Oh, my God!
That's right. Mondays and Wednesdays, Eric and I are together on the morning show. Be sure to check out the show where we bring you local news, local talent, local businesses, and local hosts.
I'm a psycho.
That's local, Ozzy, not loco. Remember, here at WCHE, we have your back. Satellite radio cares about billing you, and that's all. We're Chester County, all of us, including a few of those Delco interlopers. But similar to Curry, those Delco people bring a certain je ne sais quoi. So we like them anyhow. Be sure to support your local businesses. Local businesses are your neighbors and your friends, and support those that sponsor WCHE. They are our community. And if you don't have community, you got nothing. If you don't like my show, I don't know what to tell you. You're just somebody that, I don't know. What would you say there, Eric?
Go on out and get some air, fatso.
Yeah, but if you like it, send a nice note to WCHE at 953WCHE.com. And thank you, as always, to the diva of Westchester Airwaves, Donna Saul, the general manager of WCHE. The other day, she was telling me how much she really appreciates me. In fact, you know, she was choking back the tears, and I quote, she said, "You're the only thing we could afford, and we couldn't afford much." Now that I'm thinking about it, the pollen is increasing, so that just might be allergies that was creating the tears. Hey, check out the updates on my WCHE page on Facebook, WCHE All Politics are Local, Barry D, and my YouTube channel, All Politics are Local, Barry D. Today's intro and outro music is from Billy Joel and his song Stiletto from the album 52nd Street, released in 1978. Had it on 8-track, cassette, and album, Doug. Had them all.
Those.
Yes. It was the B-side of the single. It was the single of My Life, but DJs in New York City used to flip it over and play the stiletto side instead. And one nice final thought of the day, check the air conditioning in your car before you find out how really weak or failed it is, because summer's going to hit soon. I'm Barry D for All Politics Are Local. Thanks for listening.